I just want to see my balance. The girl's trembling voice echoed through the marble hall of the Metropolitan Trust Bank, cutting through the murmur of executive conversations and the clink of coffee in porcelain cups. She was only 12 years old, her dark skin contrasting with the predominantly white surroundings, and her torn clothes seemed even more out of place under the crystal chandeliers hanging from a high ceiling. Khalid Al-Mansour, the bank's CEO, was in the middle of an $8 million negotiation when he turned his head toward the entrance. His face, until then composed in a mask of calculated professionalism, twisted into pure disdain at the sight of the girl. She was holding a debit card so worn that the numbers engraved on its surface were barely legible. Security. Khalid's voice cracked like a whip. How did you let this intruder in here? Two men in black suits immediately advanced, but the girl, her name was Sophie Williams, didn't back down. Her dark brown eyes, though frightened, remained fixed on the service counter. Her curly hair was tied back in messy braids, and there was dirt under her fingernails. Please, sir, she whispered, holding out the card with visibly trembling hands. My mother gave me this before she left. She said there was something here for me. I just need to check. Khalid descended the marble stairs with measured steps, his $3,000 Italian suit rustling slightly. At 42, he had built an impeccable reputation among New York's financial elite. He was known for his coolness, his ability to spot fraud instantly, and his intolerance for wasted time. Listen carefully, little girl, he said, stopping a few inches from her. The expensive perfume he wore was so strong that Sophie had to hold her breath. This bank serves clients with a minimum net worth of $5 million. $5 million. Do you understand what that means? Sophie bit her lower lip, but didn't look away. Behind that dirty face and those clothes that smelled like days on the streets, there was a determination that unsettled Khalid for a brief second, before he pushed that silly feeling away. I'm not a fraud, sir. My mother was Catherine Williams. She worked here many years ago, in the... Oh, so she's a former cleaning lady? Khalid laughed loudly, causing several heads to turn in the hall. And you think she had an account here? That she left you $1 million inheritance? He made a theatrical gesture, opening his arms wide. Honey, employees like your mother could barely open a basic savings account, let alone have access to this bank. Sophie's cheeks flushed. Tears began to form in her eyes, but she held them back with a strength that surprised even herself. There was something inside her, a distant voice, the memory of her mother whispering on her deathbed, that prevented her from running away. You have 5 seconds to leave or I'll call the police, Khalid continued, turning to return to his meeting. And don't think about coming back. I'm already marking your face, so security. Khalid. A firm but gentle female voice cut through the air. Jennifer Hayes, senior corporate asset manager, emerged from one of the side offices. She was 60 years old, with gray hair pulled back into an elegant bun and blue eyes that had seen 3 decades of corporate greed. Let me take a look at the card. Jennifer, don't waste your time with. Let me see. It wasn't a request. Khalid snorted but waved his hand dismissively. Jennifer reached out to Sophie, who immediately handed over the card as if passing a sacred treasure. The manager examined the faded plastic with professional attention, turning it under the light of the chandeliers. Then her eyes widened. For a fraction of a second, so brief that only Sophie noticed, Jennifer Hayes looked as if she had seen a ghost. This card, Jennifer cleared her throat, quickly regaining her composure. This card needs to be verified in the legacy system. Khalid, I'll take the young lady to my office. Are you kidding me? Khalid crossed his arms, his face turning into a mask of irritation. We have the Al Rashid group waiting in the conference room, we have the hedge fund closing at 3 o'clock, and you want to play social worker? It's not a suggestion. Jennifer gently took Sophie by the shoulder. Come on, dear. As they climbed the stairs to the second floor, Khalid stood there, watching with a scornful smile. Around him, other employees whispered, some chuckling softly. It was absurd. Ridiculous. That dirty girl probably had $50 in her account, if that. But tomorrow he would have a good story to tell at the golf club. What Khalid Al-Mansour didn't know, what no one at that bank could have imagined, was that 15 years ago, on a rainy November night, his own mother had done something that would change that moment forever. Something she never told anyone. Something that lay dormant in the deepest, most secret archives of the Metropolitan Trust Bank, waiting patiently to be awakened. And today was the day it would awaken. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming adversity and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple bank card would become the greatest humiliation the New York financial world had ever witnessed. Jennifer's office was on the second floor, away from the hustle and bustle of the main hall. The walls were lined with dark mahogany, and shelves filled with legal documents framed the room like silent witnesses to decades of financial transactions. Sophie sat down in the leather chair, her legs dangling a few inches above the floor. Jennifer closed the door carefully and inserted her card into a reader connected to the bank's legacy system, an old computer that was rarely used, kept in a corner of the room specifically for accessing accounts created before the complete digitization of the 2000s. "Honey," Jennifer began, her voice soft as she typed in access codes, "you said your mother was Catherine Williams?" Sophie nodded, wiping away a tear that had escaped. "She passed away 3 months ago. Cancer. In her last days, she kept repeating that I needed to come here, that there was something important waiting for me. But I didn't understand. We barely had enough money for the funeral." Jennifer paused for a moment, her fingers freezing over the keyboard. "Catherine was an extraordinary woman. I knew her, you know. She worked here for almost 10 years, but not as a cleaner." Sophie's eyes widened. "What? Your mother was the executive assistant to one of our biggest investors, a man named Thomas Whitmore." Jennifer turned the monitor slightly so Sophie could see the screen as she continued typing. "He had no family, never married, devoted his entire life to business. Catherine took care of him in his final years as if she were real family. She took him to doctor's appointments, organized his medications, talked to him when no one else had the patience. You had just been born when she started working for him." The computer beeped. Lines of text began to appear on the screen, codes, dates, numbers that meant little to Sophie but made Jennifer's eyes shine with disbelief. "Thomas passed away 12 years ago," Jennifer continued, her voice now lower, almost reverent. "A few days before he died, he called me in personally and made me swear absolute secrecy. He had set up a trust fund for you, Sophie. You were just a baby at the time. A fund that would grow until you turned 12 or until you came to this bank with the card he left for your mother." Sophie felt the world spinning around her. But I don't understand. Why would he do that?" "Because your mother showed him something that money could never buy: dignity, compassion, humanity." Jennifer took a deep breath. "And because Thomas Whitmore knew that one day you would need it. He made your mother promise that she would never touch this money, that it was exclusively for you." Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Khalid was finishing his meeting with investors from the Al Rashid Group. He had closed the deal with his usual efficiency, securing commissions that would add up to $500,000 for him personally. He was in an excellent mood when his assistant, a nervous young man named David, approached him with a tablet. "Mr. Al-Mansour, Ms. Hayes has requested your immediate presence in her office. She said it's urgent." Khalid rolled his eyes. "Tell her I'm busy. If it's about that street girl, she can just. She said you'll want to see this yourself." David swallowed hard. "She sounded very serious, sir." With an exaggerated sigh, Khalid climbed the stairs, each step echoing his irritation. When he opened the door to Jennifer's office, he found the manager standing next to Sophie, both staring at the computer monitor. Jennifer's face was pale. "What's so important that it couldn't wait?" Khalid asked, closing the door behind him with unnecessary force. Jennifer turned the monitor toward him. "Read it." Khalid stepped closer, his eyes quickly scanning the numbers on the screen. Then he froze. He read it again. And again, because surely there was a mistake in the system, a glitch, an impossible bug that. "This can't be right," he whispered, feeling the blood drain from his face. "It can't. The system is broken. It's impossible that this girl has $47,350,000, Jennifer finished the sentence Khalid couldn't complete. "And that's just the base value of the trust fund. There are also equity stakes in 3 companies Thomas founded before he passed away. Stakes that now, with the growth of the companies, are worth approximately $280 million more." The silence that filled the room was absolute. Sophie, who had spent the last 3 months sleeping in shelters and eating at soup kitchens, just sat there, unable to process the numbers that represented more money than she could count in 1,000 lifetimes. Khalid staggered to the nearest chair and collapsed into it. His mind was working frantically, replaying every word he had said in the main hall. Every laugh. Every insult. Every gesture of contempt directed at the girl who now, technically, could buy the entire bank if she wanted to. "There's more," Jennifer continued, turning a few pages of printed documents. "Thomas left specific instructions. Sophie has unrestricted access to the funds at age 12, but with one condition: she must choose a legal representative she trusts to manage the assets until she turns 18. And there's a clause here." Jennifer paused, reading carefully. "A clause that specifies that any bank employee who shows disrespect or discrimination against the beneficiary must be immediately reported to the board of directors for disciplinary action." Khalid felt his stomach churn. Downstairs in the main hall, there were at least 30 witnesses to what he had said. There were security cameras. There were recordings. What Khalid didn't know yet, what would cause his world to completely collapse in the next few hours, was that David, his assistant, had already sent the video of Sophie's public humiliation to 3 investigative journalists. Not out of malice, but because David had a 12-year-old sister who was also black, adopted, and he knew exactly how those words cut like blades. And in an era where videos went viral in minutes, the countdown to Khalid al-Mansour's downfall had already begun. Khalid's phone vibrated in his pocket. Then it vibrated again. And again. In a matter of minutes, there were dozens of notifications, messages, emails, social media alerts exploding simultaneously. He pulled the device out with trembling hands and felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. The video was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. The humiliation he had inflicted on Sophie had spread like wildfire. Someone had edited captions, highlighting every insult, every cruel laugh. The devastating headline, "Elite Arab Bank Executive Humiliates 12-year-old Black Girl, Didn't Know She Was a Multimillionaire." 62,000 shares, Jennifer read aloud. In 20 minutes. Khalid stood up abruptly, panic replacing arrogance. "I didn't know. How could I have known? She looked poor." Sophie spoke for the first time since the numbers appeared on the screen. Her voice was soft, but there was steel in it now. "Is that what you were going to say?" Khalid opened his mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in his career, he was completely disarmed by a 12-year-old. The door opened unceremoniously. Robert Chun, chairman of the board of directors, entered accompanied by 2 lawyers. His face was red with restrained anger. "Khalid, you are effectively suspended as of this moment," Robert declared without preamble. "Collect your belongings under supervision. Considering the gravity of the evidence and the damage to the bank's reputation, your career here is over." "Robert, we need to talk," Khalid began. "There is nothing to discuss." Robert turned to Sophie, his tone changing completely. "Miss Williams, on behalf of Metropolitan Trust Bank, I offer my sincerest apologies. This does not represent our values." Jennifer opened a special folder. Thomas Whitmore left a letter for Sophie. He instructed that it only be delivered when she came to collect the fund. With trembling fingers, Sophie unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant, careful. "Dear Sophie, if you are reading this, it means your mother is gone. Catherine taught me that true wealth is not in numbers, but in character. This money is yours, but it comes with a responsibility. Use it to build the world you want to see. People like the man who tried to expel you will always exist. But people like you, with the courage to show up even when the world says you don't belong, those are the ones who change everything. Prove him wrong. Not with anger, but with greatness." Tears streamed down Sophie's face, not from pain, but from purpose. Her mother and Thomas had planned everything, had protected her future. Khalid stood there, witnessing his destruction in real time. His phone was blowing up, former colleagues distancing themselves, clients leaving, reporters at his door. "You know what's ironic?" Sophie said suddenly, turning to face him. "My mother told me that people will judge you by the color of your skin, by the clothes you wear. But she also taught me that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion." She took a step forward. "You called me an intruder. A fraud. You laughed at my mother's memory." Sophie took a deep breath. "But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create scholarships for children who look like me. I'm going to fund shelters. And I'm going to prove you wrong about everything. Miss Williams, Robertson interjected, the bank would like to offer our best advisors to help you. With all due respect, Mr. Chun, Sophie interrupted politely, I would like Ms. Hayes to be my legal representative. She was the only person here who treated me like a human being. Jennifer smiled, the kind of smile that erases years of cynicism. It would be an honor. Khalid was escorted out by security, the same security he had ordered to throw Sophie out. As he walked through the hall, each step was accompanied by judgmental stares, the crushing weight of consequences he never imagined he would face. Upstairs, Sophie watched from the window as the man was led away. She felt no pleasure in it. Only a quiet sadness. Are you okay? Jennifer asked. Sophie nodded. This morning I didn't know if I would have food. Now I have more money than I can imagine. But the only thing that has really changed is that people listen to me. And what will you say? Sophie turned, her reflection superimposed on the view of the city, a city that suddenly seemed full of possibilities. I'll say that everyone deserves to be seen. 6 months later, the Metropolitan Trust Bank looked the same from the outside, the same glass towers, the same polished marble, the same imposing grandeur. But inside, something fundamental had changed. Sophie Williams, now 13, walked through the halls with Jennifer Hayes by her side. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her curly hair pulled back into neat braids. But what was most striking was not her appearance. It was the quiet confidence in her steps, the gleam of purpose in her eyes. The Catherine Williams Foundation has already approved scholarships for 240 children, Jennifer explained as they walked. And the first shelter you funded opens next week. Capacity for 100 people, with professional training programs included. Sophie smiled, but it was a different smile now, not one of someone who had been given everything, but of someone who had learned to carry responsibility with dignity. In the main hall, employees greeted her with genuine respect. Some had been present on that terrible day and carried the memory as a permanent lesson in judgment and humanity. The bank had implemented mandatory training on diversity and inclusion. There were new policies. New values that weren't just words in a corporate handbook. Have you heard about Khalid? Jennifer asked casually as they reviewed documents in a meeting room. Sophie paused. She tried not to think about him too much, but curiosity got the better of her. What happened? No major bank would hire him after the scandal. He tried to start an independent consulting firm, but the clients didn't show up. I heard he's working at a regional bank in the countryside, earning a fraction of what he used to. Jennifer hesitated. He asked me to pass on a message to you, actually. He apologized. He said that day changed him, that he realized too late the kind of person he had become. Sophie was silent for a long moment, staring out the window at the city that continued to spin, indifferent to the individual dramas unfolding on its streets. I don't take pleasure in this, she said finally. Nor do I feel that he deserved exactly what happened. I just think, people need to understand that their words carry weight. That the way you treat someone on their worst day says everything about who you really are. Jennifer nodded, feeling pride in the impossible wisdom of this young woman. That night, Sophie returned to the apartment she now shared with Jennifer, who had become her legal guardian. It was modest compared to what she could have bought. She had insisted on that. The money was there, growing, being invested wisely. But Sophie understood something that many adults took decades to learn. Real wealth isn't in how much you have, but in how much you can give without feeling empty. She opened a drawer and took out 2 photographs. One was of her mother, Catherine, smiling in that gentle way Sophie missed so much. The other was of Thomas Whitmore, an old photo Jennifer had found in the archives, a man with kind eyes who had seen something special in a black executive assistant when the world told him to ignore her. Thank you, Sophie whispered to both of them, for teaching me that dignity is priceless, but kindness is priceless. Sophie's story spread far beyond that bank. It made national headlines, inspired conversations about judgment and prejudice, made people reconsider how they treated strangers on the street. But for her, the most important lesson was simple and personal. Her mother had always been right. The world would judge. The world would be cruel. But the real victory wasn't in having enough money to get revenge. It was in having enough character to choose greatness over bitterness. Khalid al-Mansour had laughed at a girl who just wanted to see her balance. And he discovered, too late, that the numbers on the screen were only part of the story. The real account he couldn't read was that of the human heart, something that can't be quantified, but that always has more power than any fortune. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because in the end, we're all just people trying to find our place in the world. And the way we treat those who seem to have less than us reveals exactly who we are when no one is measuring our worth in dollars. The best revenge was never to destroy those who hurt you. It was to build something so big, so bright, so full of purpose that their darkness simply can't reach you anymore.